In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 122. Yeah, life kind of kicked us for a little bit, but we're back.
As it always does.
Yep.
We're recording this on the day where the Blue Jackets threw out only 4 skaters to start the game.
Yeah, 13 seconds they let run off the clock.
Nice tribute. And Ovechkin just got his 700th assist.
Yeah.
So, a lot happening. Not that we have graphics prepared for it, but somewhat of a notable night for hockey and a notable day for football.
Yeah, so why don't we not start with either of those things and let's talk about some baseball.
Sure. I mean, I've long since tapped out on baseball. I think we've only done 2 episodes since July, but obviously things have been a train wreck for whatever I root for.
Yeah, well,
But Sean's team's still going strong in the ALCS.
yeah. I
So
mean, we are in the playoffs now. One round done. So
2 rounds done.
2 rounds done, sorry.
Card and DS, yeah.
Yes. I keep forgetting the card as a
Must be
round.
nice because your playoffs don't start until the DS.
I always just forget the wild card game is like the wild card is technically a round of the playoff.
It's now best of 3, so
Yes.
yeah.
I know, but every time I think of it, it's always the one game.
Yeah, it kind of. For me, it has long since been like when the Pirates were good, it was like, boy, they always ran into the hottest pitcher in baseball, and you wished it was a 3-game series. And now it is a 3-game series, and I'm just completely jealous of that. Although if they lost 2 games to nothing, I would be just as infuriated.
Yeah. I mean, so we have we only have the 4 teams left now.
The Guardians, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers. Also, kudos to the MLB for deciding that the best thing for the one round before the World Series was to put one of the games on at, I think it was like 3:30
Yeah.
start time on a Monday afternoon, but the game's in LA, so it's like
It,
12:30
it's a
start time.
12:30 game.
Just and we do need to talk about it for a second. I know there's no prepared graphic for it, but I don't know what the hell they're doing. They put the wild card games and the DS games head to head with the NFL and college football.
Yep.
When most of those games are during daylight hours, they said, well, we're going to put our games on during daylight hours. Seemingly understanding that the NFL basically owns every rating imaginable on a Sunday. Uh, and college football, there's just so many games on that you get lost in the shuffle. So now we're at a point where it's like it's Monday. The only game that there is to compete with is Monday Night Football, so you actually have a chance at the ratings. So they do the obvious and put it during a time of day where at 12:30 in the afternoon Western time, literally all 3 major time zones are still at work.
Yeah, but I think because the NHL had a 1 o'clock game also, right? So it's like it's a holiday, so
Okay, like the you know as much as I do that we both have a love for the NHL and hockey. But let's be real, the NHL has never really been great at separating themselves from the pack in terms of ratings and profitability.
right.
So, like, I don't compare Major League Baseball to the NHL.
No,
I
but
compare Major League Baseball to the NBA and
I'm just
NFL.
saying, like,
Should
they could have considered it a holiday, so they just put it in the afternoon, which is definitely the wrong decision. Don't get me wrong, but
it's yeah,
just trying to think like them.
it's definitely the wrong decision.
Yeah, it's definitely the
At
wrong
this
decision.
point, you should be advertising your product as prime time and must see, and not just being like, let's just put it on when there's nothing to do.
Yeah. So anyway, uh, we have the Guardians and the Yankees.
So, I mean, you tell me as a Yankees fan how you take a matchup with the Guardians because, like, the Tigers were one win away, but
Mm-hmm.
the Tigers also were kind of playing with house money. They really, going into the final month of the season, had no shot of making the playoffs and then miraculously did.
Yep.
But by far, their best player was Scooble, who really can only account for so many innings. So I was like, I don't think that you would have gotten a bad draw regardless. Um,
No.
but maybe Cleveland the lesser of the evils because you don't have to deal with the hottest team in the AL at the same time. Um, we're recording this during game two. Cleveland just made it 2-3 Yankees up in the fifth.
Yep.
And to the credit of Cleveland, they have a lot of talent in a lot of different places. 2 years ago, a lot of their core guys were all stars. I think they had like four or five, but they're also small market. They've done a good job of assembling high floor, maybe not highest ceiling talent.
Yeah, I'd
Um,
agree.
but I don't know, like uh, I I I think everybody and their mother is going to say Subway Series, World Series, because I think there's that normal appeal there
Yeah.
that New York will drive itself crazy, and it'll be the best thing for ratings to have two
I mean,
representatives of the biggest metro area in the country.
they're
Um,
already driving themselves crazy just based on the fact that it's a possibility.
well, I mean, like fans of each fan base attacking each other
Oh,
more than they do.
no, no, no. I mean, like it's rising due to the possibility.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's always there, regardless of if it's a possibility.
All I know
I think that it
is
would be great for chaos in the biggest media market in the world if like it actually came to fruition and that storyline could exist for like another 2 weeks.
all I know is I know that if the Yankees make the World Series, I know a bunch of people who want to come up, but I know if the Yankees and Mets are in a Subway Series, I know so many people who just want to come up.
Oh yeah. No, I would be in the mix of like I would want to see I don't know about going to a game, but I would love to just like be a fly on the wall or like just be in the city for a day to kind of see how the dynamic shifts in certain neighborhoods. Um,
Bro,
but
just come for like a Saturday and just see. It would be,
the flip side of this is that like with everybody rooting for one side, you basically have an entire population with even less patience for people
yep.
than they normally have, which is already like maybe 20% of normal capability.
Yep.
Um, I don't know, but like I said, the Guardians they do a good job with what they can, being a small market team.
Yep.
Um, the flip side of this in the NL is that the Mets have seemingly captured everyone's hearts. I think a lot of people, it's for the grimace stuff, the dude with the song who's on the team. It's for a number of reasons. For me, it's actually because last year they traded away Verlander and Scherzer, and their owner said, "We're not going after, big pocket spending again. We
Also,
want guys who are going to understand that our best chance to compete is probably when prospects come up and we're shooting for like 2026, 2027."
like there was some point where I just read like season's over, don't look at it about the Mets. And so I just stopped following their games, and then all of a sudden they're in the playoff. And they're on a tear in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating. Uh, they really went out of their way to say, "Hey, we aren't trying to win a World Series this year."
Yep.
And so they ended up kind of doing Pirates level spending, because like Manea, who's their number two pitcher, is on like a $10 million deal for 2 years, I think.
Yep.
Um, and some of these other guys, and then they brought up Acuna, uh, Ronald Acuna brother, late in the season, and he's been fine for the postseason as well. But the thing with the Mets is that um, these are guys who have been around the organization for the most part for a long time, like McNeil, Alonso, stuff like that. And they have the reputation of that they're fine on season long aggregate,
Mm-hmm.
but showing up in the big moments has never been what they were.
Right.
And showing up at the same time as their teammates when they got hot was never what they were. So what makes this kind of incredible is now they're doing something that they like historically in their respective tenures have never done.
Yep. I
And they're all kind of hot at the same time. Days where Lindor is down, all of a sudden Vientos and these other guys pick them up.
yeah, you
It's
always
like
got
everybody has a
multiple.
career day.
Yeah, you always have multiple stepping up for that team.
Yes, any given night somebody's having like a heroic moment,
Yeah.
which, for me, I was starting to ask the question, and as my buddies who's the Mets fan, I was like, be honest with me, it, are they just this good and like they didn't live up to their potential, or are they just like the hottest bats in the tournament, and eventually it'll come down to earth? And I think we settled on it's probably a little bit of both.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
I definitely think like the team like okay, they lost their pitchers, but I don't think the team was like down in the dumps.
absolutely not. But again, like I said, I don't think that the expectation, at least amongst the fan base, was for anything like this to happen.
Mhm.
And it's kind of really like it's the perfect year to be a Mets fan because you're in the playoffs, things are looking up. But even if it's like you're just the hottest team and eventually you'll run into a pitcher that shuts it down, and then who knows, maybe it all falls apart from there.
Mhm.
This was never supposed to be that year anyway.
Yeah,
So you
definitely.
can still walk away being somewhat happy about it.
Uh-huh.
But you know as well as I do with sports fans is once you get a taste of the success, all you want to do is kind of see your team climb the mountaintop.
Yeah, you
And
want that
so,
success for as long as possible.
right, and so like this is a house money year, I feel like, for the Mets, but this is the conflict of interest is them being a couple years ahead of what Steve Cohen said the schedule was, basically makes it so like, well, now it's make or break next year. I mean, it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
it's like, don't forget, a guy like Luis Angel Acuna, it was only brought up for the first time late this season. He hasn't really had the time to go through the 162 game growing pains yet.
Yep.
Like that will come at some point next year, I'd imagine. So like I could see a little bit of a dip, but the fan base won't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think of the four remaining teams, for me, it's the easiest to root for. I have a certain respect for Cleveland because of them being the small market team left.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the Mets is just like they were honest with their fan base. They said,
Right.
"Hey, this isn't in the cards right now," and then they somehow did it anyway.
Yeah. It's like they said, have zero expectations of us. They make it to the end of the regular season with like, oh, we're gonna make it in, right?
I mean, the beauty of a feel good story is the year before it turns into perennial success.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loved the Golden State Warriors when they dethroned LeBron, the first time they made it to the finals.
Right.
But once they started doing it every year, it started to get really annoying.
Yeah, it's just like the
And
Patriots in football for their
the
long
Chiefs
dynasty
most
too.
recently, like, they won their first Super Bowl in like history after 50 years of waiting, and it was like, this is great. And now it's like, all right, leave me alone. So like that's the flip side of the Mets is like they're a big market team who can afford to become that. But baseball and hockey are the most parity based sports. So
Yeah.
it doesn't always come down to that.
Yep. Okay. On to the one topic outside the playoffs we want to talk about.
Yeah. So obviously Florida's seen some shit recently.
That's
Especially Tampa.
putting it lightly.
Yes. And out of that mess came the unfortunate joke on Twitter that we had the one storm that upgraded a stadium in the sense of Tropicana Field, the dome in Florida, which take that with what you want to do, why they put a dome in Florida. Um, One of the most perceived worst stadiums in baseball lost its roof in the storm.
Yep.
Now, the Rays are a small market team. They have a notoriously cheap history, and there's evidence in the insurance industry to suggest that even with insurance claims to get the roof fixed on the dome, that it's probably not going to be done anytime near opening day.
Nope.
So this now leaves a bit of a dilemma. Where do they go? Because obviously, if there was a better place to call home by now, you would have thought that they would have gone. Uh, they have county approval for building a new stadium that's going to open its doors in 2028, which doesn't really leave enough time for an intermediate fix that's going to house a ton of fans. Um, College baseball stadiums really only accommodate a couple thousand.
Yeah, but I mean, also like
Do
they're in
they
a
use it for a
weird
training facility?
spot where okay, they're a major league team. Okay, they probably need a little bit more than a college stadium, but for how small market they are, it's not like intensely more.
True. I mean, they do normally house one of the lowest attendance
Yeah.
volumes. I remember even what was it, 2 years ago when they were like one of the top seeds,
Yep.
and in the wild card, like they had a lot of empty seats.
Yep.
Again, that could be an MLB scheduling problem, but uh, attendance has always been a problem there. I've always contributed it somewhere between what did you expect? You put people in Florida indoors, and just like there's no picturesque anything to really look at.
But hey, look on the bright side. There's a chance that teams won't have to play on concrete.
Yeah, I mean that was always the most insane thing is that teams would be like, "Yeah, we have to practice how to handle the ball differently because under the field is concrete." It's like,
So
in what
ridiculous.
world is that okay? Um, so I guess the alternatives are that I mean, if nothing else, Florida does have half of the MLB's spring training stadiums.
Yeah.
Now, as a Pirates fan, I can tell you Bradenton, which is not far from Tampa, lost their entire outfield wall in the hurricane too.
Yep.
Granted, that's a lot easier to fix, but like a lot of people go down to the spring training games because it's cold everywhere else.
Yep.
These are towns where residents don't often call home. So, what really is the potential home for the Rays going forward?
I mean, we'll find out, I guess. But yeah, like, I mean, there's potential teams don't have to play on concrete, and I gotta say, it's like, how is that okay when even like having the plans for the stadium, like regardless of the state it's in right now, like who okayed concrete under the field
I mean, if
in
nothing
Florida
else,
of all places?
I mean, anyway, just in terms of like how far landscaping and like being able to install grass has come, the fact that like
They're
we're
also in
still
Florida.
relying on
Isn't like
concrete.
landscaping and grass like 90% of their
Well, like
business?
I feel like even indoors, it's like all you have to do is open like a shed door, and don't tell me that there's like no bullpen, like a golf cart like entrance or anything anywhere that can go outside into a parking lot.
Yeah.
There definitely is. And the air is definitely enough moisture and humidity in there to keep grass growing even indoors.
Yeah. I mean, they're Tampa Bay, so they're pretty close to water.
Yeah, Lord knows that's what nature said.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully something happens.
I
Like,
think it would be great if it was like the Toronto Blue Jays thing in 2020 where there was a rumor that they were going to come and play in Pittsburgh. And like, I don't want them here, but I think it would just be hilarious if they called themselves like the Tampa Bay Rays of Boston.
I mean that'd be like going Tampa Bay and playing in Atlanta.
That'd be nice. I mean, honestly, like, it wouldn't be the worst thing if like this was the way that like a market like Charlotte got an MLB team, like, because like you know that like cities will um pay for like a research analysis and like an examined study on if their city can actually support a certain pro team. Pittsburgh did submit one last year to see if they could either support an NBA or WNBA team.
Okay.
Never was publicized what came out of it, but wouldn't one step further to be like, hey, there was a crisis in like a temporary relocation of a team is like this is like the actual learn by doing, you know,
Fair. Fair.
test of that. So you put a team in like Charlotte or something for a year and see if people show up. I mean, is that not how Oklahoma City got the Thunder, more or less?
Mm,
The New Orleans Hornets, after Katrina, moved to Oklahoma City,
right.
and they relatively showed up. Next thing you know, I mean, it did help that Seattle Sonics just up and moved.
Yeah.
But like, I assume that Oklahoma City isn't that destination without that probable evidence that was
I
there
would agree
before.
with that. So,
Anyway,
yeah. On to some football news. Two things about the Jets here, right?
hiring of
One
Robert Saleh.
is what the heck has just happened, which is now a little bit old, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And the second, if you want to bring it up.
Yeah, it was Davante Adams got traded to Aaron Rodgers' team again.
Yep.
And I say Aaron Rodgers' team because very clearly is not the New York Jets. Um, my perception on things is that so the head coach Robert Saleh gets fired. Very clearly, if you follow football close enough, you know it's a scapegoat. Like they have talent on the roster. Yes, it's underperforming a little bit, but
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean, it
why is Aaron Rodgers not in Green Bay anymore?
but it's also like they weren't 0-5 like
No,
Jacksonville or whatever.
2-3. They were showing plenty of signs of competence, and that they could have done something with the team.
Yeah. It's like
But,
they showed signs, but they just couldn't bring it like over the hill.
right, but definitely not enough to actually fire the head coach.
Yeah,
I think where this actually comes in is the Jets last year traded a haul for Aaron Rodgers, and in doing so, because Aaron Rodgers was at a stalemate with Green Bay and basically wanted control of whatever he could get in the last few years of his career, when you acquired him, you basically said, okay, we have to cater to him.
yep.
And so instead of admitting that this wasn't the right thing to do, Robert Saleh got the axe because it's the cheapest. It's cheaper than getting rid of the GM, and it's cheaper than getting rid of the player, and there's no rebuild associated with a new coach.
Yeah. But also like what's the new coach going to do because they
Right.
don't have
This is like there's nothing of substantial gain that can come from this.
Mhm.
Like it's like the coach is a puppet to whatever Aaron Rodgers wants, and like case in point, like Alan Lazard is on the Jets. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers played with him in Green Bay. The trade that happened today, that you can't tell anybody that Davante Adams isn't a Jet because of anything other than Aaron Rodgers handpicked him to show up.
Yeah.
And so now you have catered and conformed to his needs. And granted, he's been very good for a long time, but he's also one injury away from this team being shit like last year. And so you emptied a lot of assets for guys to play with Aaron Rodgers. I
Yep.
don't know. It seems like there's a lack of responsibility being taken here.
But it's also like from outside looking in because I've kind of given up on my team this football season by week 3.
Oh, why? I don't know why they're doing fine. Like the scores aren't showing it, but they look better than you think.
I mean, I know, but like every week it's like they you get some hope and then they falter.
Your thing is they need to start a different quarterback in primetime games.
Anyway, but
With
like
Daniel Jones being a 1-14 in primetime games, but like perfectly fine any other day of the week. You just need
yep.
that dude needs that
Yeah,
rest.
but like anyway, with this, right? When I saw Jets, fired their coach,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't even think of why because it doesn't matter, but I thought of, well, what does this change?
Yeah, it
And my
doesn't
answer was
change.
absolutely nothing.
I mean, they have a top 10 pass rusher in Hassan Reddick, who, even with the superstars of Brees Hall and Aaron Rodgers and Sauce Gardner on the team, decided to hold out after being traded to the Jets. And so hold out so long that his agents left representing him.
Yep.
So what does that tell you about the Jets overall? Is that guys still don't want to,
Play.
play for them. So I guess instead of being like, well, hey, we have some good blocks, let's try to rebuild for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I understand Aaron Rodgers isn't around forever. You have some level of urgency that you have to supplement, but like if guys don't want to play, it's not going to be any better long term.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, like, I just don't see any difference in this team with the coach gone. You didn't need to kick the players in the ass. Like, it literally does nothing. So,
It's an ego driven show right now.
yeah.
And that never works long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's hard pressed to believe that they're going to be anywhere near a contending status right now going into the playoffs. They're
Right.
what 2-4 because they lost to the Bills last night, I think.
Yep.
Um, it's crazy. Is like now in the social media era, like week 6 is like you might as well just be running around with your hair on fire saying the season's over, despite the fact that they have added another game to the NFL schedule and like you have so much more time to make a run.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, when we had, 17-week schedule with one bye week, okay, you can argue that, like, you should be showing some form of, like, what's going to
By
go
week,
happen by week 6, right? Like,
right, or
some
even by
form of it.
yeah,
It didn't have to be set in stone, but you needed to show at that upward trajectory in how you play.
right, and even the NFL was never like the trade deadline was never like a big buy or sell thing. It was always kind of like smaller supplemental moves because like your draft picks could always hit from any round.
Yep.
So like teams traditionally didn't give them up. Now
Yep.
it's kind of starting to change, but I just contenders always kind of have some upward trajectory, at least starting now, and it doesn't seem like the Jets.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough about the Jets for me, bro.
Okay,
Uh,
let's
let's
talk about the
talk
Giants.
some hockey.
Okay,
All right. We got 3 goalies on the block today.
yeah, one got a deal, one rejected a deal, and one is just in the middle of a scenario that you wish that nobody had to deal with.
Yeah. So, why don't we talk about the one that got a deal first?
Sure. So in the off season, the Bruins in the past couple seasons have had the best platoon of goaltenders in Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark.
Correct.
Um, Obviously, they couldn't afford both forever. They traded Ullmark and they committed to Swayman. Problem is, Swayman doesn't have the deal right now that comes with the hey, we decided you're the guy going forward and we traded away an asset to do it. So Swayman's camp, I think, went to the media and said that they were offered a deal somewhere in the range of what, 4 years and
4 years.
30 some million.
Yeah.
And then the Bruins management brass are asked about it in a press conference, to which they respond, "We have given Wayman's agent 64 million reasons why he should take a deal." So the first thing here is just common knowledge. You don't talk about somebody else's pay out loud
Yeah.
like that. there's a reason why negotiations aren't just an entertainment show. They're just kind of private.
Yep, behind closed doors.
So now you took your franchise goaltender and just absolutely disrespected him without him really having a deal past this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you traded away your old other goaltender. Seems like smart management, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, what do you think? What do you think that Swayman is worth? Because it sounds like there hasn't been a deal that's been agreed upon, and this
Yeah, but
happened
see,
a couple weeks ago.
my problem is like I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, what's Swayman worth to the Bruins? And I gotta say, it's a whole heck of a lot.
Yes, especially a Bruins core that is already hooked on a bunch of contracts.
Right. And they traded away Ullmark, and so what else do they got, right? So if you're asking what's Swayman worth to the Bruins, it's top dollar, basically.
And it basically should have been that was the conclusion to the team before they got rid of the other guy.
Yeah. And
Because otherwise, why would you do that? You
right.
could have paid the other guy for less.
But also, like, what do I think Swayman's worth to the NHL as a whole? Like, if it was going to another team, I don't think it's as much as Boston has to give him, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's seems like they really botched this. It seems like they really didn't want Swayman because like they should have known his value.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of hype around Swayman, and maybe not all of it deservedly so
Mm-hmm.
because of injuries and other items in his career so far. But if you're gonna trade the other guy, hockey's not a sport where like these guys are a dime a dozen. Elite goaltenders are elite for a reason,
Yeah.
and they get paid handsomely. Um, so let's shift over to Ullmark.
Yeah.
In this three-person entanglement of sorts, Ullmark, after being traded to the Senators, got the deal.
Yeah.
Wasn't very quickly after that, but it happened sometime before the season started in the past week or so. And he got 30 some million over 4 years.
Yeah.
So I think Swayman was looking for at least 8 million AAV. You have 8 million a year on aggregate over 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he was looking for either a long-term deal or a lot of money up front.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ullmark basically got the deal that it was rumored that Swayman was offered by Boston. So if Boston was going to offer this contract, they traded the wrong guy. And like Ullmark, when he was with Boston, was not horrible by any stretch.
No.
He was very good compared to his other teams I was on, like Buffalo. But
Yep.
it just seems like something very, very inconsistent is going on in Boston. The Senators, I'm not really sure what to make of it. They're kind of just middling.
You
Like you'd
know,
like to think at some point they're going to have enough to put something together, but
I'm
like this
not
whole
sure what to
thing,
make of the Senators, like, ever.
right? But like just in terms of overall talent, I'm not sure who of note is there that isn't there because it was the last deal that they could get in their 30s.
Hmm. Fair.
So like Giroux isn't there anymore, but when Giroux went to the Senators, like it raises headlines, but it's not going to raise a banner.
Right.
That's kind of what the destination is now.
Yep.
And credit to them, they've tried to find a franchise goalie. Lord knows they tried Matt Murray. Lord knows that they've tried one or two other guys in between. Ullmark may be it, but like I don't think that that's the problem. I think the problem is because they were able to prove competence with um, Craig Anderson, and he was like 41.
Yeah. But I mean, it did require some standout performances from Craig Anderson.
Did,
Not
but like most
not
of the time
like
they
so
actually
so
had some
many, but
bad.
still.
Yeah. But most of the time, like there was something supplementing it
Yeah.
that I don't think is there right now. They keep having prospects like they were the ones who drafted DeBrincat, right?
Hmm.
And then immediately gave up on him.
I think
Now,
so.
now credit to them, but DeBrincat for whatever reason has been on a bunch of teams since then. But if they're not going to commit to their high draft picks and prospects, then I'm not sure what they're really doing.
Hmm.
So this is the Ullmark deal is fine. It just doesn't really serve an outstanding purpose right now.
Right.
The team that's trying to make some kind of message very clear is the Rangers. Um, they offered top dollar to the reigning Vezina winner.
Didn't they offer, was it 8 years, 11?
I think somewhere around there, which would have made it the biggest goalie contract in NHL history.
Yeah.
But the guy who just won the Vezina, Igor Shesterkin, said no. Now, there's a couple of different ways to look at this. He's either going to see what the Rangers give him because, like, it's New York, and if New York is serious about winning a cup, then they'll do what they can, and they understand that once the playoffs are come around, that elite goaltending means more than ever. The problem with the Rangers is they already have some of these guys on mammoth-sized contracts.
Yeah.
Um, like Panarin's on a huge deal. They had to cut some of these guys loose in the offseason just to get under the cap again. You know, guys like did Capo Caco come back on a different deal? Wasn't
I
he free
don't even
agent and then
remember.
came back? I think he was free agent and then came back under a different, cheaper deal. Um, don't hold me to that if I'm wrong,
But
but
see, my problem, like, so you just got offered biggest contract in NHL history for a goalie. Okay, it's probably right. I don't doubt he can make 12.
oh yeah, for sure.
Okay,
Y-
but at the
The
same
problem
time,
here isn't resetting the market.
history has shown that expensive goaltenders have not been it.
Um, I guess the argument that the Rangers are making, and I guess to a certain extent, Shesterkin's camp is, have you seen a goaltender like this? And also, you have to understand that the Rangers are the embodiment of when they had Lundqvist. Lundqvist could take them really far on a consistent basis in the regular season to where they always mattered in the equation come playoffs.
But nobody
The
else would show up.
problem is, right. So this now comes down to, for the Rangers, do you believe that there's enough around there to where this is any different? And the thing is like I was saying, um, resetting the market with a deal isn't the issue here because the Rangers are obviously showing a willingness to do it.
Yeah.
I think what it's going to come down to is an indication from Shesterkin on what's really important. And that's not to say that winning a cup isn't important to him, but you know, you know as well as I do that the teams who have the most cap space and can swing the biggest deals are the teams that don't have any talent.
Yep.
So if Igor's going to bet on himself and say, "Hey, somebody's going to pay me top ticket money,"
He's
well,
not wrong.
then be prepared to stand on your head the rest of your career because you're going to be behind a bunch of lines of
You're
guys
you're gonna be
who do
behind a
not.
team that's rebuilding constantly just to try and get up and coming talent that they could put around you that just have
Right.
breakout seasons.
And like, hey, maybe he gets lucky. He ends up on a team that gets like the number one pick in the lottery,
Yeah.
um, and a generational talent comes around. Unfortunately, we've seen now in the past 20 years that the word generational talent has been assigned to players that have not lived up to that far more than they have. Because
Yeah.
we have McDavid, we have Matthews. The jury's out on Bedard. I think we think that he's gonna live up to that, but he
You
didn't
know,
come
you,
to
you need a couple
baseball
like
necessarily
Bedard. We're
ready.
not even talking about yet.
Yeah, but the Crosbys, the Malkins, the Ovechkins, those guys,
I mean,
like look at a guy like Taylor Hall,
yeah.
like as a 1-1 pick, or even like any top three pick, like there's an expectation to be great that comes with that territory,
Yep.
and it's starting to fail a lot more than it's
But I
succeeding.
mean, like, okay, in recent history, the only two people that you could probably assign generational talent to and stick to that moniker is Matthews and McDavid.
Oh, they also gave that moniker to Lafreniere.
No, but like, I'm saying consistently, like, actually stick this moniker to.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Like, I don't
So
care. Like, if you say, "Hey, this guy's a generational talent," I say, "Okay, I'm gonna wait 5 years and still see if that's the truth."
I think what the problem is that what Igor is in 5 years, like he's got to be approaching 30, if not already there. He's going to be a shell of himself if he goes purely for the biggest money deal.
Mm-hmm.
By the time that there's anything resembling competence around him, should he go for the money, he will be the problem. So, I mean, kudos to him if that's what's important to him. It obviously can take care of a family and go a very long way. Um, I think that you're playing with fire a little bit if you're rejecting a deal that already would be the
I
largest.
mean, again, like it's also like the NHL salary cap isn't really the one to grow as fast as others, right?
Right.
So
So if
if
somebody's
you
offering
take a
this money,
$12+ million deal at a $90 million cap right now, you're taking 1/9 of the cap.
also isn't there a rule that like you can only take up so much percentage of the cap with a deal?
Yeah, I think like
Like
12 is the
30.
max right now.
Oh, really? Okay, then I'm way off.
Because
But
what McDavid had no, McDavid had 12, right? Or is like 11 and a half, I forget.
are you talking about money or percentage?
AAV.
Okay, I'm talking about percentage.
Yeah, but I mean, you can look at how much
McDavid, I think,
McDavid
is
got
at
paid in
12.
AAV, and the cap around that time was like 87.
I think McDavid's at 12. I know Gaudreau, RIP, was at 13.
Yeah, so technically he can make that same amount of money.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, again, I don't mean to keep going back to like the most insensitive thing, but like, who was Johnny Gaudreau playing with in Columbus?
Okay, I won't say that he had nobody, but he had a like
A lot of problems.
you basically could count your pieces on one hand.
And that's exactly what's. I guess the merit to if Shesterkin is the guy is that obviously elite goaltending can win you a lot of games.
Yeah, I
It's one
mean, he is the
position that
guy
can
on the ice 60
swing your
minutes
luck.
for 60 of those games and
Yes, it's
every
one
game in the
position that
playoffs.
can really swing the trajectory of a franchise. But if you're not scoring, then like eventually you will give up more than your team
Yeah,
is putting in.
you need some players in front of you.
Yes, and if you only have like two good lines and still half the time you're out to dry.
Yep.
So like I think it's all going to come down to what his priorities are, but I don't know, man. If it were me, you're in the biggest media market. You have all the fame. You have all the accolades. You've obviously shown you can handle the pressure of New York. Um, and you know that they're gonna constantly put high end talent around you. I I I would have taken this deal instead of trying to play with
I
fire.
mean, people are praising him and his agent.
Oh yeah, I mean, in a financial sense, absolutely,
Oh yeah.
because somebody will do it. It's just like, is it going to be the Rangers? Because at the end of the day, I think the
I mean,
Rangers,
okay,
obviously over the past 10, 12 years,
the thing
have
is,
always put together playoff teams. Why? Because they prioritize the roster being a playoff team.
but also like if you look at Rangers fans, right? They at this point they grew up with Lundqvist. He was solid for almost his entire tenure. We'll discount the ending years a little bit, but still. So they grew up with solid goaltending. Now, as an organization, like, aren't you kind of like you're kind of like pressured to try and do that again, right?
Yeah, but I think the difference is Lundqvist always said that I don't know, I won't say said, but kind of said with his actions that putting together a cup contender was the most important. And he probably left money on the table over the course of his tenure to do that.
Yeah,
It seems like the opposite's happening.
yeah. I mean, I agree, but we'll
I
see.
mean, even at 11 and a half, he's not leaving much wiggle room for the Rangers.
Yeah, but I mean, I can see it both ways, right?
Yeah,
So,
like I said, it's a priority thing.
yep.
If you go for the money, more power to you. A lot of people do that with their lives. Um, so be it. But accolades don't come with money. You just get money.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got. So, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.